So Penny Wrenn Media is an empire. I built the company following my own creative economy model, which was really built on economies thrive when there are big players in a marketplace, big players in one or more marketplaces. And so, but economies, when an economy thrives, it doesn't necessarily mean that a government or a place does. And I had a hard time thinking about an economy that didn't include people. And so I began experimenting with the idea of a consumer capitalist marketplace as a part of an economy. And in order for that to happen, one would essentially need to make consumers capitalists. So the idea of a consumer, as it's, our idea of consumers are, they just consume, right? But an idea of a consumer capitalist is that that person is consuming for the purpose of capitalist growth. And while I think that was always our intention in this country, especially with the, democracy thing and the pursuit of life, liberty, happiness, I wasn't finding any structured systems, for ensuring that, with the purpose of ensuring that, right? Where making a consumer capitalist was the outcome. So, I also had spent a lot of my life, not having money, living paycheck to paycheck. And I had, about $8,000 or $9,000 in my bank account after having received a very small settlement, of $40,000 from, an employment discrimination dispute. And I did not want to wallow in the regret of having spent so much of the money. And I considered there are people in this world for whom spending $20,000 is like spending $20. So rather than beat myself up for spending such a large amount in my belief, I want to position myself wherein spending $20,000 does not come with such a burden, exorbitant regret. I want to create wealth for myself such that I want to create wealth for myself, to put myself in a new give myself a new wealth identity. And, I knew that that when I said identity, it was about being a wealthy person. Literally, like having that be a statistic of my being. And I think of identity as a statistical values that comprise a human being. Your name, your birth date, your occupation, whatever, right? That's your identity, your face. And so, I wanted to create a wealth identity for myself. I wanted wealth to be a statistic, an identifying characteristic of my identity. an identifying metric of my identity. I had been an employee for, on and off for different parts of my professional life. And in my last employee experience, I had some latitude to apply creative problem-solving approaches to the work that the company was doing. And my motivation for that was always people, as in people who are the company, my boss, the owners, people who are the client, and people who are my colleagues, my team, my staff. So the outcome was always clear, meaning, if the thing that the company sold was, an account to create X amount of websites and write X amount of articles, that's a project, right? And the ideal outcome for the client, the only reason they're investing in that project is because they want a certain type of result. Their ideal outcome for at the company I was working with was typically SEO, search engine optimization for their name, or for their personal name, or for their company name. What happens when you input that name into Google? What comes up? And how can you make that keyword phrase, and how can you use that keyword phrase as a signifier in an internet or digital ecosystem that puts it in front of the right people, or when people look for it, they're getting the right information. So often I found that the company was selling these engagements on a projected outcome, and that was sometimes actually feasible, and sometimes it wasn't. But often, even if the projected outcome was feasible, the project itself, how it was designed, the deliverables, as in the number of websites built, the number of articles built, the type of work that we were doing on that account, was not supporting the feasibility of that outcome. Just because something is feasible doesn't mean that your approach to making it happen is therefore going to promote that feasibility, right? It's feasible to get across the street safely, but for everyone. But if you run in the middle of traffic, or if you close your eyes while crossing the street, you are not supporting the likelihood that you will walk across the street safely. So you have to put together a strategic plan to get someone across the street safely. You have to you have to create a system. And so I began I began creating a structured sense of understanding. I began trying to structure my frustration by I was always frustrated that, doing the work that I was always frustrated that people that I was hearing from clients, because they weren't seeing the results that they wanted, that I was seeing my staff be less and less engaged, missing deadlines, or not doing the work, not doing work in ways that would, promote the ideal result. So, if you're going to using Twitter for the purpose of, that SEO, ideal SEO outcome, search engine result outcome, how much of that, our thinking was, okay, well, we're going to create the account and we're going to, do activity on there. And that activity was not necessarily connected to the entire kind of ecosystem. Also, that activity, that like Twitter would not necessarily, like, it needs to be one of many, like, and then seeing that if you make 5 Twitter accounts that you're populating with posts, 2 to 3 times a week, after you do that 5 times, you begin hating it. And the idea, like an assembly line, that labor force, that assembly line labor force mentality, we've applied it to so much of what we do, as a country, that, we're going to train people to do these 5 things, and then we're going to ask them to do these 5 things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, ad nauseum, until they retire. Even if you get promotions within your company, you're still same things over and over and over again, or if you go to other companies, same things over and over and over again. And, while that can change within industries, right? I realize, like, I'm in this industry wherein social media marketing, or whatever you want to call it, wherein all people are doing is publishing content and optimizing, like knowing how to publish content, knowing where to publish content, and knowing when to publish content, who to, like, just the who, when, where, when, why, whatever of publishing content. That was literally just publishing content, but it wasn't an actual, it was a content publishing type of wheelhouse, right? A content publishing assembly line mentality versus a media empire, publishing conglomerate type of, but versus a media empire mentality. And for me, because I grew up in magazines, I was always applying media thinking, magazine thinking, especially, to everything I did. And that simply meant understanding how, and that simply meant, to me, every positive outcome could be illustrated as a magazine. So if you tell me that you want someone to cross the street, that cross the street example, I could create you a magazine about that system. So, like, if you have a positive outline, the magazine to me is the system. And I saw it that way. Like, that's just how I saw things. So, and often even outcomes can be the magazine. So for me, I was like, okay, so the magazine is this person's online identity. Let me figure out what, John Inc. magazine is, what John Inc. is. I would just add an Inc. to everything, and that's the magazine title. So let's figure out what John Inc. is as a magazine, as a publication. What's in the front of the book? What's the table of contents? And then deciding, and then creating digital platforms, like just digital landing places, digital landing pages, digital destinations. I created digital destinations that would encompass that part of the magazine. I created a digital destination for the cover, a digital destination for the TOC, a digital destination for the feature well, and that's to say, and often a website is, I believe that, a personal website is the digital destination for your cover, right? And you creating a separate site, often I'd be creating just independent and individual web pages as landing pages to be digital destinations for the components of a magazine. So if you Google me, you'll see pennywrenn.com, is, I want to show up second or third in my search results. In Penny Wrenn Media, I want to show at the top. Because if Penny Wrenn Media Inc. is the magazine, that's the cover page, right? And then I want my second thing to be, Penny Wrenn Media, an hour work, or, the portfolio, or which is the idea company. To me, the idea company is our table of contents. The idea company is the, arm through which I, do a lot of the work. And then the second, so there's two companies. One, that there's the idea company, which which I created for patentable work, especially. Then there's also, Worried About the Wrong Thing, which is a, content company. It's a publishing company. So Worried About the Wrong Thing is where I publish, that's the company through which I've published, my show that came out in 2025. That's the company through which I partnered and published, the book, Great Day in the Morning, which is the memoir about, my father particularly. Worried About the Wrong Thing is, the arm, Worried About the Wrong Thing. That's Worried About the Wrong Thing, right? And Worried About the Wrong Thing is also, that's why I also published my, Harvest for the World economy, book, right? That really is a narrative rendering of, my thinking. So, and Penny Wrenn Media is where you'll see is where I started. And that company, the idea company is the first entity that I was using to be a profit center of Penny Wrenn Media. And I was training myself to understand that ideas are power. And power has profit value and people value. And people value is about service and significance. Service and profit value is about significance. And in a lot of ways, there's shared concepts, the significant service thing too. And those words, service, significance, equals success. That equation for life was gleaned from a YouTube video, with a commencement speech by Oprah Winfrey. And I think of her as a hallmark for personalized economy creation, with what she was able to do through her many companies and media entities. So she's my signpost for personalized, economies, personalized wealth economies, personalized economies, making a mini micro economy just for yourself, for your family, for your people. And, and getting that's how you create generational wealth. It's not just about absorbing assets and playing in the stock market and that type of stuff, which is how it's designed right now. I couldn't figure out, how do you build wealth? How can I ever have a wealth identity? I couldn't figure it out. I was like, do I need to invest this money and let it sit there? I'm thinking, but would it be a better use of this money, this $9,000, to map out a strategic plan for having it sustain me for X amount of time, with a goal set for my generating income that generating increasingly passive income? That seems to me that has I have controls over that, and I can also leverage that in other ways. see, in investments, and I have my investment, whatever, but I do that out of obligation because my father always wanted me to do that. That's literally the only reason why I do it. And I know will always be a hallmark of in economic success. And I know that so much of our economy is built on investments. And so I don't pay attention to that. I don't know. I do not care at all. I have no investment literacy, no stock market literacy, none at all. That's simply because I choose not to. It's just like when you put money in the bank, I don't know how the banking system works and I don't want to, but I do know that I want my money to be in an account. And I do know that I want, that, if you tell me I need to have an investment account, fine, that I want it to be a particular way. I believe in organizations as ecosystems. So I believe that there is a way in which a stock market company as a structure, as an organizational structure can, can operate, right? Can operate in a way that, that is about people and power. I could do a people power restructure to any organization in the world. I really could. And I believe that everyone should do that. But at the end of the day, no one's looking, like, everybody in the world is not going to let me restructure their organization, and I don't want to. And the idea of, however, whatever it is I'm thinking, those are not duplicable processes or patentable processes. And our IP infrastructure, our infrastructure for intellectual property, for protecting intellectual property, is such that it favors artificial intelligence. And it favors humans who can structure artificial intelligence. And for me, and I realized, like, that human structuring of artificial intelligence was how everyone was how all of our country's wealthiest people were making their money. It wasn't even just through the code itself, like through the code queries itself, through the strands, right, of that artificial intelligence, or the creation of artificial intelligence. Like, there was so much emphasis on coding. Everybody has to learn to code. Everyone has to learn to code. And I was super resistant to that. I don't want to code, and I do not believe everyone should learn to code. I believe that that we do need to begin creating coders, because we need coders, but everyone does not need to code. In the same way that there was a point in time where all high schools had, industrial arts classes and whatever classes, because we knew that there was everyone needed to do blank, that our marketplace, our economy thrives on blank. So for me, I believed that there was no one thinking about taking a humanistic benefit, creating humanistic and benefit corp organizations. And when I discovered what a B Corp was, I was off and running. I knew then how to begin structuring my organization, like, meaning benefit corps are designed with these strategic UN goals in mind. Like, they're trying to create, like, that thing, and the goal is to say, like, their companies can make money and still support public benefit, public good. And it's not charitable. It's not a charitable thing, right? And even if you look at ESG and stuff, like the environmental this and the social this and the geopolitical whatever, and just like having people who are responsible in that way. And then that meant, for some companies, that meant we're going to use this kind of straw, for some companies, et cetera. And we never had these metrics. There was no comprehensive metrics or system for an ideal outcome there. And I'm not saying that any of that was wrong, but to me, I was like, these just kind of, we need to be worried about this, so let's start doing this. And then it's someone else saying, oh, well, since everybody's, thinks we need to be doing this and they're now doing this, then I'm going to make a company that does that and also can communicate with the person who's saying, like, it's such that we have all these concerns and we are trying to monetize them in real time, right? And not like as if we're always in a race trying to like not be beat, or like I just always trying to address something, I guess. And we think that reacting to things is addressing them. So, and you're never gonna be able to solve for every single problem. And we were just solving or reacting to every problem without creating a sustainable, responsive, reactionary, preemptive, and perspective problem or structures. Like, to me, like I wanted to invest in structures, organizational structures, where problem response, problem resolution, problem solving, right, was inherent to the structure. And doing that would mean so much thoughtfulness. And so the only way, to me, to incentivize someone else to be thoughtful about what they do is to attach what they do or what you want them to do to money. And I don't believe that that's wrong. That's how it should be. Because even for myself, when I started thinking about wanting to improve the healthcare system for people with dementia, I made myself I incentivized myself with money. So I said to myself, okay, how can I do this in a way that generates income for me? But also, then I'm saying, but if I only have that point of view, you're never, to me, like, I don't believe in selling things to anybody unless I have a plan for making that person money. Because success is something that is so difficult to measure. And you need to be in an organization for so long to even get a sense of what success is. And it's subjective. But money is not. Less of it, more of it, that is not subjective. So if I have anything I create that's designed to make me money must also make someone else money. Because I need to sell. I'm going to create a thing that's designed to make me money. That means I have to sell that thing. So I'm going to create a thing, right? Because I want to make a certain amount of money. And based on the amount of time, effort, whatever I see as the added value of that thing I created, I'm going to set a value to it, a market value, a monetary value to it. I want to have a wealth identity. So to me, that market value needs to be a high number. And I'm a little black, I want to say I'm a little blacker, but I was a middle-aged black woman who had worked in magazines and then a startup, who had been unemployed for a year and a half, who had been who I had no credentials, not the kind of credentials that would make people give you, hand over $1 million checks. So I needed to make sure that whatever it is I created had very clearly designed, had a very clearly designed structure, profit structure for the person I was selling it to. Like, that needed to be a part of the thing I was making. So that the proof of concept piece, especially if I were able to take my intricate, my journalistic intricacy, integrity, accuracy, like that ability, and apply it to this like a model that I was putting in front of this person that could so discreetly outline, this map, this profit map, I would at least increase my chances for getting someone to hand me $1 million check. That's what I believed, because I was telling them how this thing that I have productized can make them $5 million. And to me, I'm so not worried about the $5 million that somebody else has. I believe if you pay me $1 million to make $5 million, and then you make that $5 million, then what I know, okay, is I can begin to charge a lot more for the thing I'm selling. And I can apply a leverage growth mindset to the thing I'm selling to begin expanding my offerings and then compounding my profit. Like, to me, I was literally training myself to think like a microeconomy. I was training myself to think like Mark Zuckerberg. If I were Mark Zuckerberg, like with my arms around an ecosystem, and my motivation being power. And I don't believe that power is a disparaging word. I don't believe that it makes you ask. I don't believe that, right? But it's clear he has a power mindset. And power mindset is how we became one of the most influential countries in the world. Power mindset, though, is also how our economy has become so vulnerable to destructive disruption. Like, and when I say that, I mean, like the hacker, like the subversive underground hacker economy that's created right now. And that's motivated essentially by all of these super high value marketplaces that have technical vulnerabilities, right? Which is it's such there's so much hubris in that. If you were to take a look, like, imagine being a hacker and seeing that, in my small town, there was that Steinman Communications was the conglomerate media company that published our local paper. And imagining just being a hacker, seeing that, okay, here's this publishing company, and they're making this amount of money with this, whatever newspaper. They're publishing all these types of articles, whatever, and their code is shit, like there's like all of these opportunities in their code. And of course you want to exploit it because you're thinking like you, king person, sitting up high on your horse, high on your throne, looking down, like thinking that you have all of this. The subjects of every kingdom will always want what the king has. And I understood that the way our economy worked was that every single pocket of wealth or influence or monetary influence read to those without influence and wealth as a kingdom. And kingdoms are designed to be destroyed and broken down. There's not one kingdom left on the planet. Even if you look at the king and queen in Great Britain, like that's not actually the political structure of the country. There's not a kingdom that exists yet to this day. And so applying the principles of democracy to me was less about was less about voice and hearing and it was less about like content. It was about money. It's about money. It's about having a fair, everyone having a similar economic investment in the economy. And even if that didn't mean everyone having the same type of wealth, at least everyone having the same type of access to the same types of wealth structures. That's an economy to me. I'm sorry, that's a democracy to me. The only thing that matters is money. So you can't talk about civic engagement to me. You can't talk about voting rights to me. You can't talk about, ensuring the fairness in those things without thinking about money. You just can't. So I wanted to apply an economic, like a wealth principle that was like, about democracy. To me, I believed that was the future of everything. And so I made notes about all of my thinking as I was doing it, and I tried my best, and I trained I trained myself to become increasingly disciplined in, thinking and also, activating tasks for marketable systems. So meaning like, cause I was trying to say to myself, like, I don't want to just think, I also want to do. But then that makes it seem like thinking and doing are oppositional forces. And I don't believe that. And it automatically creates an internal tug of war. And I know that thinking and, allowing myself to think, exploratory thinking, not burdening myself, not feeling bad about myself, not being scared, not thinking I'm crazy, whatever. Thinking was an essential part of, my, ecosystem. Like if I think about my economic ecosystem, everything begins with, a cell, like you begin as a cell, and the cell like you have the sperm, you have this, like to me, the thinking is the process through which the fertilization happens, right? The thinking is something's happening outside of the cell. The thinking is God. To me, thinking is God. To me, thinking is God. Thinking is that which we cannot define. Thinking is the mystery. Thinking is God. I believe our imagination is God, and thinking to me is fellowship with God. It is, you are engaging your imagination, creative imagination. So I could not have the practice, right? Be oppositional to the I couldn't have the personal be oppositional to the universal, because to me the thinking is universal, right? If you're ecosystem wise, right? The thinking is the atmospheric or whatever. And so in the same way that if you're a religious person, right, you have to have having that Bible, right? Having a Bible, studying that Bible, and then, learning there's like a rote remembrance or whatever, like, and you're building churches and you're doing this based on what the Bible says. And that was also part. So I was like, I would be thinking, and then I'd be training myself to create systems and like sellable, marketable systems or products or output. Like I train myself to say, with this idea, I want to make this thing. So meaning like, okay, this is my thing. This is the thing I want to make, right? This is the part that I can't. So I knew there was something about the thinking and then the doing. And I knew that they worked hand in hand. I was training myself to understand how to discern tasks and activations from my thinking. And I would just go back to one website, dementiadeservesbetter.com, because that's where everything started. And so I would discipline myself to build out, take what I was applying, meaning like I would go back to the last place where I got stuck, right? Because usually the thinking happens when I was in the task mode and I got stuck somewhere. So go back to the last place where I got stuck. And in this instance, it was selling a content management solution to activate patient advocates to activate patient advocates in a dementia patient's community, or to support patient advocates. So I wanted to sell a content management solution to enterprise health networks designed to support to support the designed to activate support systems within, within the communities of dementia patients, to activate the support systems of dementia patients. So I wanted to create a content management solution that would optimize.
Hello, 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 hello. So that was that was a voice note that I left for myself in 2021, October 23rd, 2021. The sentence that I'm making my way through. So I wanted to create a content management solution that would optimize the support systems of dementia patients, a content management solution that would optimize the support systems of dementia patients. That's what I wanted to do. And and that was my taking just that conversation, that desire, my frustration around my father dying and not being able to communicate that, just a BIM score is not a regulatory metric, not being able to communicate. So the BIM score, I think that was, it's like what your, I don't know, some recall is. And I don't know if I talked about that earlier. Even if that patient is quote unquote not using, even if that patient is quote unquote not competent and deemed anecdotally so, is what I'm talking about. It was criminal to me that these are all anecdotal, colloquial, and interpretation of a memory and aging that are now being applied in institutional ways. This is conjecture being applied. I don't know if I'm talking about me or what, and it's infuriating to me. It was just infuriating to me. Anyway, so this whole me talking through the type of company I wanted, this is before ChatGPT beta was released, literally almost a year later to the day, October 2022 or November 2022. And I started using it right away. Um, but I think, yeah,
I'm training myself to.
I think it's interesting that I I still play make believe and talk and play work and talk my way into a professional future by way of imagination, praying that there's something self deterministic about it as well. And I'd be training myself to create systems, like sell marketable systems or products or output. Oh, wow. Like I trained myself to say, but I want to make this thing. Huh. I was training myself to understand how to discern tasks and activations from my thinking. And I would go back to one website, dementiadeservesbetter.com, which is a site that I own or rent basically because you can't own anything online. And it is actually an existing site. Let me see. Uh, dementia. Oh, but I did .org. Same thing though. Hold on, let me share my screen. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. The system is not designed to protect your loved one. We're building the tools to change that. Every family navigating dementia care encounters a system that moves fast, asks little, and tells less. sorry about that. The paperwork doesn't always match. The person, the diagnosis often never comes. The right exists, but only if you know. The rights exist, but only if you know to ask for them. This is the organizing infrastructure for everyone who has decided this is not acceptable. CMS guide model launched. This is my Penny's dad website. For some reason, the pictures don't come up. This is a voicemail my dad left. Yeah, the domain name is the first sentence. Penny's.dad. This is a website that I made. That's not a real quote. Yeah, I'm downstairs. I'm just finishing up my live. Yes, I'm just. What timer? Oh, can you hit stop? Yeah, I'm just finishing up my live. You want to come down? Come down and say hey. So I need to actually update these links and downloads. Okay. You know, I made these before. Yeah. And I need to revisit also the. Hey, baby! What? Come here! I was finishing up my live, but I want you to come say goodbye. Bye. Bye.